With pre-season testing just around the corner and 4 of the 10 cars being launched, it's officially time to get excited for the F1 2021 season. Welcome back to the Grid Top Podcast. Today we'll be having a look at the 4 already launched cars of McLaren, Alfa Tauri, Alfa Romeo and Red Bull. My name is Ruby Price, and joining me today are engineering student Owain Medford.
Hello.
And broadcast journalist Louis Edwards.
Hello.
So, Louis, let's start with McLaren's MCL35M. There's not much visual change, but really, it's all about the Mercedes engine underneath.
Yeah. In terms of delivery, it's very much the same. But if you look at the shape of the car and the sort of the way that this car's been built this year, you can definitely tell it's very different to the one that we saw last year with that Renault engine. Yeah, that Mercedes engine is the big talking point about that car. And yeah, the last time McLaren changed engines, went from Mercedes power to Honda, it didn't work very well. Even this sort of Renault hasn't been the most successful. I think it could have done a lot better. But now it's time to see if McLaren can really challenge with this Mercedes engine. And from the looks of the car, it looks good. It looks like it is a step up from last season. Of course, with the we do have some regulation changes this year, so naturally you've got quite a bit less downforce on the car just from the regulations. But I'm sure McLaren can figure their way around that and try and find some more. But so far, looks so good. But we just have to see what it looks like on track.
And Owain, obviously, they finished third in the 2020 season. They've got Daniel Ricciardo coming in. What about, this 2021 car is going to, help McLaren to either defend third or maybe even go a bit higher?
As we said, it's the Mercedes engine in the back, really. I mean, they've made a lot of changes to actually make the car fit that, because obviously it is architecturally quite different from the Renault power unit. So it'll probably introduce some other characteristics, and McLaren, I think, actually might go backwards a little bit. Obviously there's a lot of power on it, and McLaren know what they're doing, but to change concept like that, they may have to switch to the sort of Mercedes way of doing things, just sort of for vehicle dynamics reasons, I guess. So I kind of expect them maybe to go backwards, but then again, they've kind of proved that they can do a sort of quite a lot with just a little bit in sort of the recent years. So it may actually not be so much of an issue with for them, just having such a more reliable, more powerful power unit in there.
And going on to the, how it still looks pretty much the same. Obviously, they've stuck with the papaya and the blue. It's pretty much the exact same, color layout as last year. There's been a couple of people complaining about the monotony from McLaren this season, given, the opportunity with having not much different on the car. You can experiment with the livery, as some of the other teams that we're going to be talking about have done. But, we went from 2007 to 2013 with McLaren being red and chrome, Louis. I think the papaya's here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I like the papaya. And honestly, the delivery's got better since they first introduced it in 2017 with that absolute god-awful black and orange car. But it's gotten better. And honestly, I'm a big fan of this year's livery. It's still the MCL35, just with an M. It's basically the same car. So there wasn't really any need to sort of make it any sort of drastically different, because it isn't really that much of a different car. It's just got a different engine and sort of a different sort of rear end to it. And honestly, there's no complaining. And McLaren still have that kind of We Race as One sort of rainbow on their side pods, which I imagine we're going to see probably drop off from a lot of the teams' cars this year, because while F1 is still supporting the message, there's not going to be any obvious branding of it anymore. So you've got to kind of give your hats off to McLaren for kind of sticking with that.
It's nice to see a team stick with, there are 2 teams on the grid that are certainly sticking with last year's messages, but, to actually continue when there's no, real contractual obligation. So hats off to McLaren, and most likely hats off to Mercedes as well. As, it's not been officially launched yet, but it's going to be black. So, Owain, let's talk about the Alfa Tauri AT02. See, the second Alfa Tauri Challenger and they've gone for an inverse colour scheme this time around.
Yeah, they've sort of flipped it. It's much more blue this year. I mean, in the renders, if looking at the photos, in the renders, it actually looks a bit sort of less blue, but it's a much deeper one in the flesh at their sort of, obviously, Tauri's fashion brand store, where they launched the car in Austria. You can see it's glossier and is much darker blue. I thought it was quite ironic because I thought it looked a bit more sort of Toro Rosso like, particularly sort of from the front. It's very, very dark. But yeah, Honda's also got pride of place on it, which is surprising, bearing in mind that they're leaving the sport at the end of the year, I believe. You know, they are loud and proud sort of on a lot of notable areas of the car, like the side pods and the rear wing.
As you mentioned, Honda leaving, obviously the Alfa Tauri, presumably AT03, is going to be powered by Red Bull engines. So the prominence of Honda, at least they're giving them a final bow out, I guess you could say. But Louis, something I noticed and something was pointed out on a couple of articles, there's no coat hanger rear wing at the, end of the car this time around. I'm quite glad because those things have been a bit of an eyesore. It sort of reminds me of, was it 2018's like T-wings and stuff? Might be 2017.
2017.
Yeah. I'm just, cars being more aesthetically pleasing is something I'm all about.
Yeah, even though they were, I don't know if they were strictly outlawed, but some teams have found a way to keep them. Haas, notably, have always kept a kind of little T-wing hanger wing sort of on the rear of their car. So it's nice to see that AlphaTauri probably found enough downfalls on that sort of the rear of their car to not need it, or sort of not need it to sort of disperse any turbulent air, which is nice. And when you get rid of them, it does make the car a lot better. I think sort of going back on that sort of that Honda thing, I think now that they've got Yuki Tsunoda in that car, probably Honda wanted a bit more brand placement, because he's in the Red Bull program, he is technically a Honda driver. So that's probably why that's like it. But as you said, it will be gone next year, and it'll probably be replaced with whatever company name that Red Bull used to produce and manufacture their engines under.
Maybe they'll use more Tagger. It really made all the difference in 2018 with those engines, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Owain, going back to what you were saying about it obviously being a lot more blue, one of my criticisms of the 2020 grid was that there were a lot of just white cars. So now it's kind of nice to see that blue is being the staple of it.
Yeah, I think they sort of, from a branding point of view, I think they wanted to go with, like you say, because a lot of cars were just kind of white, and particularly from the front shots. It's a problem we've had in the past, particularly. But you end up with a car that you couldn't tell whether it was an Alfa Romeo or an Alfa Tauri, which is particularly bad when the names are so similar. But yeah, them sort of changing it to a more blue sort of livery makes it stand out on track a little better. So that's the sort of reasoning behind the change, I think.
Mm. And Louis, they're going to be 6th or higher next season, or even lower.
So honestly, you don't know where they're going to be. I think AlphaTauri sort of they did have a very solid season, I think, but it was just a little inconsistent. I think if they find a bit more consistency, they could probably challenge the likes of Renault and now Aston Martin. But I still think they're definitely definitely going to be faster than the Alfa Romeos, the Haas, the Williams. I don't think they're going to have to be too worried about that. While we sort of hope that Pierre can continue this sort of great run that he's been on, we have to see what Yuki Tsunoda can do, as he is a rookie to this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So on to the now really confusing team name of the Alfa Romeo, who launched their C41, which, Owain, is very much more like a extra developed C39 rather than, a brand new car. Because the way that it looks, it's more like just, they've taken what they finished with and built on that.
Yeah, the full story behind the C41 name is is sort of a bit of a misnomer. Of obviously, this basically what happened was because of coronavirus, the team was sort of working on C40, which was intended to be the 2021 car, and then obviously coronavirus sort of happened, and Formula One obviously decided to push back those rules until 2022, but they'd already started on the C40, so that had the designation of that, and we get the C41 as sort of a B spec, a B spec C39, which is, we're looking at the car, sort of when I was analysing and things like that, it doesn't actually look that much different. They've kept the T-wing, so I know that'll be something you maybe don't like so much. The most of the change has come at the front of the car, really. The barge board looks fairly similar, sort of just behind the front wheels, and the rear wing sort of. I don't think they're giving anything away. Like, a lot of this architecture looks fairly similar, which makes sense, bearing in mind while we don't know what the Ferrari sanctions were, essentially. I've heard rumours of like reduced fuel, but I imagine it's architecturally not that much different, sort of awaiting a new engine formula and an engine freeze now. But they've opted to spend their development tokens at the front, sort of redesigning the nose area particularly to sort of, I think there's the aero cape thing that Mercedes tried in 2017 and it's become popular on the grid. That's what they're trying to sort of make work better, essentially, to recover lost downforce.
So, Louis, obviously a thinner nose and stuff, but they've got a it's inverse than the Alpha Tauri, but are still somewhat inverse color scheme, so that, like, it's a bit more red and hopefully more noticeable, so we don't end up with all of Crofty's misnamed teams and stuff next season.
It's about time that Alfa Romeo switched up their livery. It's been ever since the team sort of became sort of under sort of the name of Alfa Romeo. It's been relatively the same, and yeah, it's nice to see a bit of a change to the car. And as Owain said, it's nice to see that they're spending their development tokens quite wisely to try and maximise as much as sort of the airflow and the downforce they get on the front of the car. Yeah, it was a pretty disappointing. I think by all accounts, it was a pretty disappointing season from Alfa Romeo in 2020. I think they were definitely a lot slower than we originally thought they were going to be. So I think they're really trying to make sure that they just optimize as much as they can on the car, get as much out of this car for this year, and hopefully then come with a better challenger in 2022. But it's yet to be seen how much sort of all these changes will affect the car. Of course, we are speaking before pre-season testing, before we're literally just going off a few images and a bit of sort of just a bit of a shakedown session. But hopefully we can see some good things from this car.
And Owain, obviously they're keeping Kimi and Antonio for 2021. Is it going to be Kimi's last season? What do you reckon?
Oh, I don't know. Is he bored yet? Like, I think the Kimi's thing has often been, I'm getting paid a decent amount of money here to just drive around. You know what? To be honest, I'll provide an opinion. I don't think it will be. I think he'll stay for a couple more years, and Ferrari are going to need like really experienced racing drivers for their entry into the sort of the World Endurance Championship as a factory thing in 2023. So, I mean, if I were Ferrari and I had someone sort of not so much on my payroll but very much a known entity, that's who I'd go with. Like, I think it'd be great to slot in an endurance racing sort of thing. He's still got speed, but not so much. But it's the experience that I'd want, and becomes very, very valuable in that sort of sport.
And very, very valuable to Alfa Romeo as well, with all those jumps up the grid that he had last season. Often fighting with, well-known Ferrari talent, Sebastian Vettel, for no points. But yeah, Louis, on to the probably of these, the least exciting car reveal of the four, the Red Bull RB16b. It's almost identical as their 2020 Challenger.
Yeah. Honestly, I was shocked. I was like, when I saw the livery, I was like, wow, so amazingly different. But it's just what I come to accept. I'm just like, I miss the days when Red Bull would just put up a complete, sort of like false livery, and we were like, oh wow, and then they've kept it. But at least it gave a bit of some excitement to Red Bull car launch. But yeah, I don't think Red Bull really. I think what Red Bull did need to change quite a bit on the car, because it was obvious that Mercedes are going to absolutely run away with it, and I think Red Bull are probably bored of sitting sort of second fiddle to Mercedes after so many years now. But I think this year is just going to have to be another year where they're going to just have to take it on the chin and look forward to 2022. I think that's what we were going to sort of come to expect from a lot of the cars this year. There wasn't much that they could change. The chassis had to be pretty much identical, and they only had a certain amount of sort of development tokens to change on other aspects of the car. Yeah, I think Red Bull is just going to have to take this one on the chin again this year. look to 2022 as their next best opportunity to really take the fight to Mercedes. But it's not saying like last year's Red Bull was a bad car. It wasn't. It was a very quick car. It just was hampered by reliability here and there, and also a pretty dodgy second driver. So hopefully they've changed that this year with Sergio Perez, and hopefully Max can have a car which maybe allow him to push a bit more and not have the reliability issues that we saw last year.
Owain, you were pretty displeased with Red Bull's car launch, if I remember correctly.
I have multiple issues with it. Okay, right. To give you the full story, we knew the date that it was going to be released on, but not the time. So there I was, up at sort of, I think I was up at 9 a.m. UK time, and I was just kind of waiting on Twitter, and just waiting and waiting. I mean, and I was on their media pages and on their media port, nothing, and then it was just a tweet from 15 minutes before it was actually going to launch, and then another tweet saying it actually had launched, and sort of a video with almost no light in it. And I don't expect them to make it easy for me, bearing in mind they're not trying to make it easy for any of the other teams to sort of speculate what they're doing. But when they come out with a car that is, as Louis said, as you've both said, sorry, nigh identical to like we're talking the front nostrils has some slight, like really slight increases in size, and they've cut down the floor as is legally required, and they've put like a few more louvers on the rear wing at places, but apart from that, it's basically identical. They've removed some fins here and there, but they're not giving anything away. And there's only 2 images, so you can't even see what they're doing at the rear of the car either. It's I don't expect them to make it easy, but this is nigh impossible. I did notice a detail on the floor which I thought was quite interesting. They seem to have extended the barge boards to add some, to get rid, like obviously the FIA has banned sort of the slots in the floor that you used to see on the edge, but they've seemed to have got around that, I think, by adding these sort of, it's almost like if you've ever seen sort of like a freeway bridge sort of thing, just kind of stacked on top of the floor, and I think that's how they're sealing the floor with their high rate concept this year.
As you mentioned, like, just so hard to notice anything different about the car. But one of the things that is pretty striking, Louis, as mentioned as well with the Alpha Tauri, the prominence of Honda being on the car. Like, obviously they've dropped Aston Martin as a sponsor. Well, Aston Martin dropped them as a sponsor because they now have their own team. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah, it really is. Very little difference. But yeah, I mean, with Honda sort of going out the sport, and they have brought so much to Red Bull. We were all a bit nervous of what Honda was going to bring to Red Bull because of their pretty miserable time at McLaren. But this partnership's worked really well. Instead of sort of the relationship they had with McLaren, where they were like, McLaren were demanding the engine and didn't really work with Honda. They just, Red Bull have taken a completely different approach, worked with Honda, sort of made sure that the engine and the car work as one. And that's not just for the Red Bull team, it's also been working with the Alfa Tauri team as well. And they've won a few races. They've been consistently getting podiums. I mean, God knows how many times it was Hambot there last year. Verstappen was always there. And honestly, again, this year, I don't think we should expect anything too drastically different. Maybe we'll get a Hambot pair there now and again. But I think, as I already said, I think this year is just another year for Red Bull. I don't think they're going to be expecting too much. I think they've got their eyes sort of fixed on the races that they think they're going to win again. The Austrias, the Monacos, potentially even like Mexico, if we actually ever get to half these races, of course. But yeah, you got to hope that Red Bull will continue the fight, but whether they'll win the fight is probably quite a big uncertainty.
So, of the 4 challenges that we've seen so far, who gets your star livery as of yet? Owain?
Oh, goodness. I think just because it's... I mean, of the 2 that have really substantively changed, is that a word? Probably not.
Yeah, substantially.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. So it's sort of substantially changed. That's Americanism coming out of me. God, it's probably the Alfa Romeo. Yeah, it's the Alfa Romeo, I think, because I just like red more than blue. in that sort of when it's put against white.
Louis, same logic or
Red Bull. No, I'm
Red
joking.
Bull?
No.
Yeah, maybe if they'd done a camo livery.
Maybe. Honestly, I'm going to say McLaren because I really liked that livery last year. And honestly, I'm not disappointed that they've kept it for this year. But I might have wanted to see a bit more, sort of maybe even like a chrome and papaya livery, just because to celebrate Mercedes coming back. Obviously, it's not the partnership that it was. They're just purely an engine supplier now, so it makes sense. So yeah, I'd still stick with McLaren.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with well, both of you, but also mostly Owain. I really do like the Alpha Tauri with this dominant blue force that it is.
I thought Owain said Alfa Romeo.
I said Alfa Romeo because I like red more than blue.
I thought you said what? You said the other... I could have sworn you said you like blue more than red. Anyway.
Oh, I might. You know what? I might have done. Honestly, I've looked at these cars quite a lot.
Anyway, after that bombshell. So we've still got Mercedes and Alpine on the 2nd of March. We've got Aston Martin on the 3rd, Williams on the 5th, Ferrari's car being launched on the 10th, having already launched their team, which makes no sense because Ferrari's been around for a long time, and Haas is still TBC. What are people expecting from these?
I just want to say something about Haas. They're actually having a livery launch on Thursday.
Ah.
Yeah, that's just been announced.
I mean, that'll be basically this. I mean, the way Formula One teams are launching their cars now, like having spent a good few hours looking at all the different ones, they'll be virtually identical launch specs. Like they will probably look like they did in Abu Dhabi last year. So that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting just the same front wings, the same rear wings. You know, maybe we'll see some sort of architectural changes to how the power units are set out. But apart from that, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference.
Yeah, the only sort of launch I'm really looking forward to at the moment is the Aston Martin, just because I just want to see what colour they decide what it is, and I want to see how the sort of the BWT sponsorship is going to work with all the green. But yeah, that's the only one I'm really looking forward to. Mercedes, we pretty much already know what the car's going to look. But livery-wise, we know what the car's going to look like. And honestly, I don't think we're going to expect too much of a change from the W11 to the W12 because that W11 was an absolute monster. Also, Williams, I mean, they're probably going to be somewhere near the back, but hopefully they have a less of a sort of a Sensodyne toothpaste sort of look to their car. Yeah, there's not really much I can say.
No, not really. A point on the Merc, I'm kind of interested to see, like, obviously the W11 was designed as a silver livery and then changed. Like, how they implement actually purposefully designing a black livery, like, goes. But, you know, they've already put out a teaser on their Instagram, so we already have an idea of what it looks like.
I'm looking at it now. It looks really, I really quite like the look of it. And if it's matte like some images have suggested, I think it could look really cool.
I do think they're going to go matte. I mean, it's lighter. You don't have to have a gloss layer of paint. So we've seen like Ferrari and Red Bull have done that in the past.
Yeah.
The next Mercedes just goes even quicker than the W11.
Well, in 2015, remember McLaren's livery at the start? It had all the metal flakes in the car to make it look a bit shiny. Yeah, they removed all the flakes from the car. And they lost like 2-3 kilos in weight of the car because it's just taking out the metal flakes in their paint. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, when they finally moved away from the chrome requirement, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, and then just turned it into an absolute horrendous piece of engineering in terms of Formula One.
Absolutely. So, with pre-season testing as well starting on the 10th to the 12th of March and all of the remaining car launches, there is certainly a lot to look forward to before the season gets underway. We are newly available on Verbal, as well as Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Video, and Pocket Casts. Just search F1 Grid Talk. We have a huge back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to qualifying and race results. We have a Reddit, just search for the subreddit F1 Grid Talk, and we have a Patreon for mics, lights, and better recording equipment. We'll be back as soon as more of the 2021 season challenges are revealed. Thank you very much to Owain and Louis for joining me.
No worries.
No problem.
And thank you very much for people who are listening, and goodbye.